welcome to this video log with me, Wayne, from SwimCycleRunCoach. Well, we had a good response to last week's vlog about open water starts and how you should train for them. And within that vlog I gave a session plan. At the bottom of each session plan I actually put what levels of effort I think a swimmer's going to be in, or athlete's going to be in, depending on what session I'm doing, within that session, so I can calculate it daily, weekly, monthly, annually, that type of thing. So we're in the right place and the right training level. But Min Trong asked, what the hell do they mean? So I thought this vlog should be about that. So I'm going to go to the computer, describe those levels, and then we can come back and have a discussion. So the heart rate zones that you see in all of my session plans relate to the intensity that I expect to be used within that particular plan. And it's important for a coach and an athlete to know where they should be aiming their effort level for every single set. I'm trying to help you here with a few descriptions. This comes from my son's personal information and his maximum heart rate, etc. So what we're working off is maximum heart rate and percentages of that. So level 1, for example, would be anything below 75% of maximum heart rate. Level 2, anything below 82% of maximum heart rate. Level 3, anything below 89% maximum heart rate. Level 4, 95%. And finally, 100%. Anything 100%, 95 to 100% is level 5. Now, you might think that's quite narrow, but those really are approximations of what we want, and the energy expenditure and muscle usage, or muscle energy system usage, that we want within those particular zones. And I'm trying to make it easy for you here in terms of saying what these are and what you might be doing in a session, be it swim, bike, run, or anything else that would fall within those categories. So level 1 I would say is a recovery. In other words, very easy. Level 2, if you're doing in level 2, you'd be doing drill work and form work. So you're working on your style, your form, and things like that. And I'd consider that steady. Threshold pace, we would consider your long distance personal best pace. Long distance being something in the region of 1500 meters in swimming. If you're looking at running, you might be looking at 10k pace or marathon pace. And in cycling, you'd be looking at, let's say, 25 mile plus time trial. Lactate tolerance and lactate production, we would consider very hard. You know that you cannot sustain this pace for very long, but you certainly can sustain it for between 20 to 30 seconds, even perhaps a minute. What you can't do is keep that going for very long. You'd have to then drop back into threshold pace. In fact, your body would make you drop back into threshold pace if you kept it up too long. And finally, level 5 is pure speed. This is just maximum effort for a very short period of time. So I would expect speed to come into play if you're doing a half length or 15 meters, absolute max, and then going down to easy. And it's important to work those systems and all of these systems in certain amounts during most sessions. Now, before someone out there writes down, yeah, but heart rate zones aren't particularly accurate, we know that. We know this isn't the absolute best way to measure effort, but the problem we have is it's the only thing that most people have to measure it. And if it's the only thing most people have, you have to use it because it's the best we possibly can do for most people. Okay, so I thought I'd give you a heads up. That's the basics of L1 to 5. I'm going to go on now to describe them in greater detail and also compare them with power zones that you can use on something like a bike. So if you want just the basics, you're done. If you want to know a little bit more, carry on watching. There's another problem with heart rate zones in that bike heart rate zones are different to swim heart rate zones, are different to run heart rate zones. Effectively, you can't reach the same maximum heart rate in cycling as you can in running, and certainly not in swimming as you can in running. And if you think about it, that makes sense, because on a bike you're actually not fully supporting your body weight and you're leaning forward. In swimming, you're not supporting your body weight at all and you're prone. So your heart doesn't have to pump the blood up and down your body. And you can see here for my son, we've taken 10 heartbeats off the maximum heartbeat for each bike and swim difference. And you would probably be the same. That's approximately right for my son. Again, you can do a max test on each of these, but that would be approximately right for all of you. Anywhere between 6 and 10 beats per minute down for the bike and the swim heart rate zones. Most people haven't got a swim heart rate monitor, but now with the Garmin you actually can. Okay, so let's take a closer look at these swim heart rate zones, which is the thing we were particularly asked about. Now, level 1, I would suggest, is still recovery pace, which is very easy, and that's true of all swim, cycle, run elements. Level 2, this is where you're going to be doing your drills. You want to do your drills with real quality. So if you're practicing stroke work, drill work, you want to keep that steady so that you can maintain a really good stroke without being on the limit, without having to rush a stroke or be overly stressed at all. Level 3 is your threshold pace. Now for my son, whose chart this is, that would be 110 to 115 per 100 pace. So you can think of it as pace per 100 that you can keep going for a long time. Remember, we're calling this long distance PB pace. Anything above that, and we're switching into level 4, we're building up lactate. And we may want to build up lactate for particular reasons and then flush it away, which is why we do level 4 work. We're trying to be very hard in what we do. We're going to do that over shorter distances, probably about 50 meters, perhaps even 25 meters, repeats on shorter rests, and then having a recovery after those. And then we come to max efforts, which are over incredibly short distances. You can be doing 10, 12 and a half, 15 meters at your absolute max, because one thing's for certain, you won't be able to keep up your absolute max for more than about 10 seconds. Okay, so that explains that. Let's just now have a look at the potential power zones that have come into use recently. Power zones have become important in cycling because in cycling you can actually attach a power meter to your bike. There are systems for running coming in, and I understand there's a system for swimming coming in, but it's much more awkward running and swimming to actually work on power. But for bike, it's quite easy because you press on the pedal. That can the amount of pressure you use on the pedal can be measured. That is fairly easy, and it's standard. People like Sky use it all the time, and most of the professional peloton use it, and also most professional triathletes use it as well. And with bike power zones, you actually work on functional threshold power. Functional threshold power is roughly in the level 4 barrier here, and it is the power you can maintain for 1 hour. So that's what it's based on. Power you can maintain for 1 hour and no more. So at the end of an hour, you'd be absolutely drained of energy. Now you can imagine you can't really use that in training very much. You can't do max 1 hour efforts very often in training. And so we work out the levels 1 to 7 based on that. And you see in level 4, we've got 105% of functional threshold power, and you can only keep that up in training normally for around 10 to 30 minutes. You're not going to keep it up longer than that. If you go above that, level 5, it's 120% of threshold power, 3 to 8 minutes. Level 6, about 149, and 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And above that, you're just going flat out, and you're talking again that 10 to 20 seconds. Below level 4, we're looking at longer distance rides that we can do in comfort. So to take a closer look and explain the relationship between heart rate and power a little bit easier, we're going to take a look at my son Lance's training, something that he did on Tuesday the 2nd of May, which was a watt bike ride that he did for, as you can see here, 45 minutes in his lunch hour. So we're going to have a look at the graphs that we can get from that. I'm just going to hide one and smooth this graph out. And you can see what I've done here is I've got heart rate by zones, so we can see he's into zone 4
quite a lot, and in power he's actually going up to 6. And if we go over all these, we can see how long he's in that. So zone 5 is range 267 to 304 watts, and he was in there 24% of this particular ride. And we're trying to get lactate for him building up. But if you look at the beginning, he starts at 87 beats per minute and 85 watts. Over the course of his warm-up, that takes him to 128 beats per minute and 233 watts. Each of these efforts, you can see on the wattage, is reasonably stable. So towards the end, he doesn't take a peak necessarily. Whereas you can see on the heart rate, it grows all the way through the effort. And there's a fundamental difference between heart rate and power. Power is the power you're putting out. Heart rate will be reactive to, for example, how hot you're getting and how long you've done a potential exercise. But also, when you drop the power down and take a recovery, you can see it's back to 89 watts. His heart rate never gets back to around the 80 mark. It's always going at around the 125, 128 mark. And yes, again, we're peaking up 163. We do go up to 311 watts, but he gets back to 97 watts and only gets back to 121 beats per minute. So you can see there's a disconnect between the two. The power is exact. You are putting out a power. You can't hide that. Whereas heart rate is actually variable. You never get down to where you think you might get down. There's a peak here. We've got 790 watts. And that is a huge sprint. But you can see the heart rate doesn't peak anywhere near that because it's an all-out, very short effort. So there shows a little bit of difference between wattage and heart rate that might help explain the difference.
Okay, so there you have it, levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in training, or 1 to 7 if you're using a power meter. Now, they're hugely important. If you go out training, you want to know that you're training the right energy systems for the right amount of time, or approximately the right amount of time. So if you're going out on long rides to get aerobic fitness, level 2, level 3 is where you should be firmly placed. If you're trying to get that start in swimming, as we saw in open water, then you've got to be in level 4 because you've got to build up that lactate and have the ability to flush it away as soon as you're done with that huge speed. And the better you can do that, the more you will have trained in a training situation. Okay, hopefully that's helped you. Remember, you can always ask me a question if you post it below, and I'll always try and come back and give you the answer. Have a great week. It's getting sunny out there, but unfortunately the only day off I have this weekend is Monday, and that's meant to be raining here in the UK. Such is life. Okay, keep well. See you soon.